I'm Hank Hildebrand, and I'm the Chapter 13 trustee here in the Middle District of Tennessee. And I and an attorney from the trustee's office will soon be conducting meetings of creditors in Chapter 13 cases. You're watching this so that you can be prepared for that meeting of creditors. When your name is called, we will call your attorney, and your attorney will ask you to take a look at the computer so that we can do this by video. Before we start, I'm asking you to do a few things that would make this a little bit easier for you and certainly easier for us. You and your attorney have filed a bankruptcy petition, which is you swearing everything about it. You're under oath on this entire 120-page petition, and you're saying that everything on it is correct. I would like for you, before you get to the meeting of creditors, to take the time to look over your bankruptcy petition. And I want to go over with you a few of the things that I'm going to ask you to look at. First, I want you to find that bankruptcy petition. Usually your lawyer sends it to you, and hopefully you've brought it with you today. If not, then you need to get a copy from your lawyer so that we can go over this carefully. I want you to find the page in that thick packet of papers which says Voluntary Petition for Individuals Filing for Bankruptcy. This is your Chapter 13 petition, and I want you to double check the accuracy of question number 1. It's probably the easiest question in the whole petition. It's your name. But what I want you to do is double check and make sure that your name has been properly spelled. Because if your name has been misspelled, you may well be paying for up to 5 years, but you might not get rid of your debt because of a typo that we could fix today. So check that. If you've used another name in the past 8 years, like maybe you were unmarried and then you got married, or you were married and you got unmarried, or maybe a nickname you've used during these 8 years, that's what question 2 on your petition is all about. Check it and make sure that's correct. There is a question on your petition that's very important to us. We need to have a good mailing address for you throughout your Chapter 13 case. So I'm asking you to check question number 5, because I'd like to start with a good address. I want you to check the zip code, the street number, the spelling of the street. And there is a line on here which the post office doesn't care about, but we do. And that is the county in which you live. Here in Tennessee, we have a lot of cities that cross the county line, and so it's important for us to know the county in which you live. All right, if that's okay, I'm going to ask you to flip through that packet of papers until you get to Schedule AB. It's usually about 10 pages after that first page of the petition, but find Schedule AB. Now, Schedule AB is where you list everything you own, and I want you to double check and make sure you put on here absolutely everything you own. Everything. It's not just real estate or a vacant lot or a timeshare. It's furniture, appliances, stereos, automobiles, bank accounts, insurance policies. It's everything. It's firearms. It's your pets. If you've got a pet, you own it. It's got to be listed. But it's kind of a test for you to make sure you're reading all of the questions. So if you got something furry and friendly waiting for you at home, take a look at question 13 and make sure that it's been properly answered. Maybe somebody owes you money, and if they do, that's something you own, even if you're having a really hard time collecting it. Or maybe you've got a lawsuit against somebody, or the right to file a lawsuit for an auto accident, workers' comp, wage and hour, EEOC complaint. That's something you own, even if you haven't filed the lawsuit. It's really important for you to check and make sure you've got everything. Why? Well, this statement that you're submitting to the court is not just, I swear this is what I own. It's also a sworn statement to the federal court that you own nothing else. And believe me, that can be used against you by other people in other places. What am I talking about? Well, a couple of years ago, we had a fella in chapter 13, and his house burned to the ground. This poor man lost everything he owned. It all burned up. So he made a claim on his insurance company. Well, his insurance company, they only had to pay him for what he'd actually put on his petition. Because you see, he swore he didn't own anything else. He comes to me later and he says, okay, I forgot my stove, I forgot my refrigerator, and I didn't list all of my furniture. Well, that man never got paid for that, and the insurance company didn't have to. So you double check and make sure it's right. All right, if that's okay, I want you to flip through just a couple of pages until you get to Schedules D and the one after it, E/F. Now, Schedule D and EF are where you list everybody that you owe money to. And I want you to double check and make sure you put on there absolutely everybody that you owe money to. It doesn't matter if somebody else is making the payments. Doesn't matter if you haven't heard from them in a long time. Doesn't matter if the debt is like child support and you're up to date with all your payments, or a student loan and it's in deferment. Every debt you owe has got to be listed on either Schedules D or EF. Now, we've noticed a lot of times people are not listing debts when they've co-signed a debt for somebody else. Now, if you've co-signed a debt for somebody, that somebody may be making all the payments. But if you signed that contract, that's your debt too. So make sure we got all of those. If that's okay, I want you to look at Schedule G. Now, Schedule G is where you list everybody with whom you have a contract. Who's that? Well, if you rent apartments, it could be your landlord. If you rent furniture, stereo, TV, computer from one of these rent-to-own places, it'll be them. If you have a storage unit somewhere, you have a rental agreement. Or maybe you've got a cell phone contract with T-Mobile, Verizon, Sprint, AT&T. Anybody with whom you have a contract needs to be listed on Schedule G. If that's okay, take a look at Schedule H. Now, Schedule H is where you list everybody who has co-signed a debt for you or you have co-signed a debt for them. So make sure you got everything on there. If that's okay, take a look at Schedule I. Now, Schedule I deals with your income. So this should show where you work. That takes a complete mailing address, how much you earn on an average monthly basis, and then what they take out of your paycheck for things like taxes, insurance, retirement. And then you'll also see any other income you get's got to be listed here as well. Maybe you get child support or Social Security or get a pension. Or maybe you have a second job where you're like driving occasionally for Uber. All of this needs to be listed on your Schedule I. And then I want you to pay particular attention and look really carefully at Schedule J. I think Schedule J is the most important piece of paper in the whole petition. What is this? This is your family's budget. This is what you have said it takes for your family to live. So what you've got on here is your rent, your utilities, your food expense, clothes, out-of-pocket medical expenses, insurance premiums. This is just everything. This is gas, tires, and tune-ups for your car. It's daycare for your kids. It's what it takes to live. But I can't tell you the number of times when I start asking people questions under oath as to what this budget means, they just look at me like I'm crazy. Well, because what it turns out is that piece of paper that they filed with the court, their Schedule J, isn't the way they live. And if it's not, if you look at it and it's not really your budget, well, this really isn't going to work for you. And I hate to see you spend a lot of time, put a whole lot of your money into something that we know right now isn't going to work. So if you see something on there that's wrong, you want to discuss that with your lawyer. Look, Chapter 13 is not for everybody. There's nothing wrong with that. You got to be able to afford it. And that Schedule J shows whether you can afford to do this. It also shows whether you're doing the best you can. So please double check it before your case gets called. That's the stuff in your petition. So what do you do if you see something on your petition and it's wrong, or something's missing, or something changed since you put all this together? What do? Well, you want to make sure that you talk to your lawyer before the actual meeting starts and discuss with them these things you forgot, things you missed, things that are wrong, so that they know about it. But when we start your meeting, make sure you tell us. If you tell us today, we can generally fix it. But the biggest problem people make in Chapter 13, the biggest mistake, people leave their meeting of creditors and they don't tell us about things that are wrong. So you don't want that to happen. Please double check, make sure it's right. So what do? You see something on here, it's wrong, it's missing, it's changed. Make sure you tell your lawyer. But the petition is the most important thing you can do before we start your meeting. But there's a couple of other things I want to mention. Your payments to the trustee are required to start within 30 days of the filing of your petition. When you filed your petition, you can check with your lawyer as to when the first payment was received by the trustee. Don't let this be a surprise, because if we did not receive a payment within that 30 days, we will generally ask for this matter to be set for a hearing, and you will have to appear in front of the judge to explain why you missed your very first payment in your own plan. So that's critical. You're also required to have with you today a copy of your insurance on your car. While the rules require you to keep everything insured, usually with a homeowner's policy or a renter's policy, you need to bring your auto insurance policy with you today. Now, frankly, most of the time, we don't ask for it. But if a creditor does show up in your case, you are certainly required to have that proof of insurance, because they're entitled to ask. So make sure you've got that available. We do, however, need to see of photo ID and something official with your social security number on it. So we're going to ask you to get that out now so you have that in your hand, because the first thing we're going to do when your meeting starts is ask you to show us, by putting them very close to the camera on the computer, you show your photo ID, usually that's a driver's license, and then your social security card. If you don't have your social security card, we will accept a W-2, a 1099, or a transcript from the Social Security Administration. Just make sure you've got that available. If we start and we get this done, there are a few things you're going to need to expect. If your plan requires a hearing, then we will try and tell you that at the meeting. If you do not get a red booklet from the trustee's office, or you do not send the trustee a certification that you've watched this video and also watched the discharge video from the court, then we will set the matter for a hearing. And you really don't want to have to take another day off and do that and deal with the court. So please make sure you fill out that certification, that you can ask your lawyer how to get that. Your certification will indicate that you have both watched this video and you have checked over your petition and you verified that everything on it is correct, and that you have watched the discharge video that's offered by the court. So that is very important. So there is another thing that I want to mention. There is a requirement in the bankruptcy code that you have to attend a class in personal financial management. Well, we offer that class in personal financial management, but right now we can't do it because of the COVID-19 rest at home policy, and we're trying to avoid crowds. But once that lifts, you want to attend that workshop, and you want to do that as quickly as you can after we've lifted that. I'm suggesting that you check the trustee's website on a regular basis to determine whether we're offering the class and when you can sign up for that. Okay? Now I'm going to encourage you that before you get up to the table and you have to face this, you take a look, you talk to your lawyer about what's on your petition and what's happening today. One of the things that many people are concerned about is the status of their case. They want to know, how's the case going? Are you getting my payments? Who are you paying? What are the claims that have been filed in my case? Well, there is an entity called the National Data Center, NDC, and your lawyer can tell you how to register for that. But you want to register because then you can get access to the information in your own case. Now, it's confidential. Only you can get that once you get the password. But we're asking you to register just as soon as you can so you can monitor that. Now, if you have any questions about anything I've gone over today, please talk to your lawyer about that. Now, before I turn this off, I want to remind you that if I have not received your tax return for the 2019 tax year, that was the one that's due on, or was due on April 15th. Now they've extended it to July. But if you haven't filed it and I haven't received it, we're at a dead stop and we got to do this again. So please discuss that with your lawyer if you would. And if you have no other questions, you can wait for us to call your case, or you can talk to your lawyer. Thank you.